In our AAA console gaming bubble, the Nikki franchise hasn't made too many waves, to the extent that many might not even be aware of its existence. For about a decade, the Nikki games have been an exclusively mobile-oriented affair, which, combined with their nature as dress-up games, meant that even though the audience that they targeted has only grown larger with time, there hasn't been too much overlap with the console gaming sphere. Developer Infold Games' goal was to change that with Infinity Nikki, the fifth installment in the series and the first to be released on PC and consoles, and all early indications seem to be pointing to the studio having successfully pulled it off.
This must be Flourish.
As we approached Infinity Nikki's launch at the tail end of 2024, the game was amassing increasing excitement and anticipation, and now that audiences have managed to dive in and get a taste for its offerings, it's clear that whatever it is that the game has going on has got its claws sunk deep into the masses already, which only spells good things for its future, for now at the very least. And why exactly is this relatively unknown quantity that had previously had next to no track record in the PC and console gaming sphere suddenly seems all set to end the year as one of its biggest new releases, especially where its player numbers are concerned? Well, looking at what the game offers, as well as the pure quality it's touting, it's easy to understand why it's attracting a sizable audience, especially in a genre that has seen rapid and exponential growth ever since Genshin Impact revolutionized it a few years ago. We obviously have to start with the fact that as a game focused on dressing up characters in a multitude of different dresses, Infinity Nikki has immense appeal in a way that shockingly few games do. That's not the sort of experience that we see much, or at all, in the traditional console gaming space, which is why there hasn't been that much of a market for something like that over the years. That is, however, maybe a cyclical argument, because as the consistent success of the Nikki games and the impressive start enjoyed by Infinity Nikki itself seem to indicate, clearly there is plenty of demand for such games. In fact, if anything, it looks like Infinity Nikki might be filling a void. With hundreds of different dresses to gather and wear, each boasting not only incredible visual design but also staggering attention to detail, clearly the game has a lot to offer where its central premise is concerned. Though incredibly enough, there's so much more going on here, to a degree that it is likely to surprise players who are going in expecting something relatively straightforward. There's a shocking amount of things to do, and not only does the game exhibit impressive variety across the activities that it has its players engaging in, the majority of it is also just a ton of fun. Movement and traversal in Infinity Nikki deserves a lot of props, and regardless of which abilities and dresses you're making use of as you navigate the game's open world, the plain and simple act of moving around never loses its charm and immediacy. The world itself also boasts strong design. Exploration is heavily encouraged, and thanks to organic design, the consistently enjoyable nature of most of the activities that you stumble upon, and the fun traversal mechanics, it's very easy to get distracted and start heading off the beaten path, only to be occupied yourself with an ocean of optional content hours upon hours later. It also helps that the world of Infinity Nikki is a joy to simply exist in. Vibrant, colorful, and relentlessly cheerful, the game goes out of its way to ensure that every single aspect of it is utterly pleasant and charming at all times. Whether you're speaking with personable NPCs, dressing up Nikki with the most elaborate fashion picks, exploring the vast world and uncovering its secrets, or even engaging in what passes for combat in the game, Infinity Nikki is always working overtime to be the brightest ray of sunshine it possibly can be, and there's something incredibly refreshing about that, even if it's not everyone's tastes. The fact that it's a free-to-play game also obviously helps massively. Obviously, we've seen an increasing amount of similar games ever since Genshin Impact came along in 2020 and proved that a free-to-play gacha game can also be a well-made, large-scale AAA open-world production. And that's exactly what Infinity Nikki is. And the fact that you can hop into its sizable offerings and experience the vast majority of the excellent content it has on offer without having to spend a single penny has obviously appealed to a large audience right out of the gate. This is, of course, still a free-to-play game, which means the necessary evils of microtransactions are, well, necessary here as well. It's obviously still very early days for the game, having launched just a handful of days ago, so we don't yet know how its monetization policies are going to evolve and what groove that they'll settle into. For now, however, Infinity Nikki is striking a decent balance. Yes, it does have a deluge of free-to-play elements that may very well make your head spin, from dailies and weeklies to a cavalcade of currencies to keep track of, among other things. But there is next to nothing in the game that compels you to have to spend money. The vast majority of purchasable in-game items can all be earned through gameplay, and the few that cannot are purely cosmetic items. Now, some of those items are admittedly rather exorbitantly priced, but the fact that they're entirely optional and completely ignorable purchases does make it easier to look past their pricing. Whether that pricing model becomes more aggressive and predatory with time is what we're all going to want to keep an eye on in the weeks and months ahead. Of course, given the fact that this is often the course that we see free-to-play titles taking, especially with games that rely on gacha mechanics, but at least so far we can say that Infinity Nikki is striking the right sort of balance. Few could have predicted until not too long ago that Infinity Nikki would amass as many as 10 million players within just a few days of release. But maybe that speaks more to a collective blind spot for what we see as the traditional games industry. The Nikki series has only grown from strength to strength, and to see it transitioning to such a large-scale, well-built, fully fleshed out console experience, and one that is free no less, easily counts as one of the year's best and biggest surprises. If developer Infold Games can capitalize on that impressive start and support the game the way that it deserves to be supported, Infinity Nikki could easily become another ongoing industry giant, one that'll be attracting audiences for years and years to come. Will it be able to do that? Well, that remains to be seen, but so far, the game definitely has the juice. And that'll be about it for this one. If you guys like what we're doing at GamingBolt, please consider subscribing to our channel, and I'll see you guys on the next video.